Hello, you guys. Today I'm going to talk about version control, very important topic for any developers. First of all, what is version control? So imagine that your program is working now and you change just one thing and your program breaks. And you want to change it back again before that you do just one thing. But your program is still broken. Why? Have you ever met this situation before? Yes, for me, for sure that I got it several times, and I try to undo something, like go to the file, undo something. But here, just one thing is very like we don't know this one thing is big or small. Maybe you change several files, or maybe you forget to change one, because one thing here may be one feature or whatever. So it's not easy to undo for just one thing. Okay, so another scenario, your program worked well enough yesterday. Okay, so you say, okay, it's enough for me to submit to the for the course, or maybe to present or make a demo. But you want to do some improvements. Try to do it better, make it better. But then, after you do some improvement, it cannot work. It cannot even run. Maybe some improvement, your improvement may make your program cannot work, and you can't come back to the version that your product worked well yesterday. So it's also a problem, right? Another scenario, when you work with your teammate or co-worker, you change one part of a program, it works. Your co-worker, your teammate change another parts, it still works for him. But when you put together, it doesn't work. Because some change in one part of your coworker or you may break something in other parts, and it's not easy to check. It's not easy, but I mean you can do it, but it's take time and maybe very difficult for you to find out what are all the changes. And that is very common situation before in my course, when students do in a group, do mini project in a group. So they work separately, and when they make a demo for me, they say that, oh, we cannot put together. I can have my demo in my computer, and my teammate also have another demo for his features or his work, his task. And can we present separately? But I say no, because that is a result. The mini project should be for all teams. It's not like separately you work separately. So my answer is no. You need to have an only product to present to me. Okay. So that is some situation that you may meet before. So how to solve that problem? You can use some tools to compare the differences between two files. However, it's like just very like just to compare, but you cannot come back to the version that worked well, right? So how to do it? Yeah, there's some tools that you can see the difference, but it's like only to compare, but you cannot come back to the version. So that is the purpose of version control system. Version control system, often called a source code control system, that can keep multiple, that is older or newer version of everything. So it's not only source code, but also other resources like image or a file or documents in whatever that necessary for your project. And whenever you change something, you need to comment what did you change so that you can track the change easily, right? And also they have a check-in and check-out mechanism of the files, so you know which files someone else is working on. And in the version control systems, you also have an integrated tools to check the difference between versions or between files. Yeah. So something like a version control system is all in one, many necessary tools for you to manage the version of the source code and other resources, and also let you work maybe alone, but can manage multiple versions or work with your teammates. So it is very important for any developers to control, to manage the source code, the version of your source code and other resources, okay? So how can they manage the file, the versions? So we go to the next part, is the versioning models. So in fact, we have two main models of versioning. It's unlock, modify, unlock, and copy, modify, merge. And in this part, I also introduced you about the central version control and distributed version control. Okay, that is a way to manage the resource. In the versioning control, so we have two versioning models: the lock, modify, unlock, and copy, modify, merge. Okay, so first go to the lock, modify, unlock. Lock, modify, unlock. The versioning control is saying about how can you manage when you work with your teammate. For example, here you have we have Andy and Bobby, the two teammates in one repository. Okay, so we have the common resource A in the common repository, and Andy and Bobby check out this resource to their local copy. They get the local copy to their workspace. Okay, and then Andy need to edit that resource. So when Andy want to edit the resource A, Andy lock the file A and begins modifying it. Okay, and at that time, sorry, Bobby also want to edit that resource, but she can't because there is a lock in that resource. So Bobby need to wait for Andy to finish the editing and unlock the file. When Andy finish editing the resource A, that is the version of Andy, he commits to the repository, and now in the repository, that is a version of Andy, and Andy need and now Andy want to edit that resource, but the version of Andy, version of Bobby, that is the original A, and the version in the common repository, that is the version of Andy, is different, right? So she need to get she get to get that version first, and then put the lock on that resource and edit in her local copy of the file. Okay. After finishing, to modifying that resource, Bobby commit the version that is merging the version of both Andy and Bobby to the common repository. Finish. And Andy can update that version to his local file to get the last version from the common repository. Okay, so what happened? What happened with this model? I mean, do you like this model? Is it easy to maintain the consistency? Yeah, right, yeah. So, sorry. In this versioning model, you see that we don't have any concurrent editing of multiple members in the project, right? They cannot concurrently edit a resource. So it's very easy to maintain the consistency of one resource, right? Or the common resource. But what's the problem? What is the disadvantage of that model? Yeah, that is the problem. Whenever Bobby wants to edit the same file at the same time with Andy, so if two members want to concurrently edit one resource, so only one can edit, and others need to wait for him or her to complete the editing. So it will reduce the productivity, right? Because we need to wait, and sometimes Andy may take a long time to edit a resource, or even he or she may forget to unlock to the resource or whatever, and many other situations. So it will reduce the productivities, right? So that's why this model is like, when I was a student, this model is very popular and common. But currently, we don't use that model anymore. We use the model copy, modify, merge. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this model. Still the same. Andy and Bobby check out the resource A from the common repository to their local copy, okay, in their workspace. And then if they need to edit the file concurrently at the same time, so they can do it at the same time. Okay, so Andy edit the resource A to Andy version, and Bobby also edit the resource A to Bobby version. Okay, and if, for example, if Bobby finished before Andy, she will commit that version to the common repository. And then when Andy finish editing, if he want to commit his version to the repository, he can't do that. Because the version of Andy now, okay, the version that Andy, before Andy editing, and the version of the repository is different. The version Andy before editing is A, and the version of the repository now is Bobby is not A anymore. So he need to resolve the conflict, if any, between the two different versions, right? So in this case, maybe there is a local conflict. So he need to resolve that conflict before committing his version to the repository. So he need to get or update the version, the last version in the common repository, with merge. That means he need to merge the version in the common repository, that is the Bobby version, and his local version, that is Andy version. You need to merge, okay? If there's no conflict, it will automatically merge. But if, for example, Andy deletes this statement, but Bobby edit that statement also, so Andy need to talk with Bobby or look at the source code to do the merge and to decide which version should be used, or maybe do some modification for the merging. And then he now can commit the merged version to the common repository. Okay. And Bobby also can update that version to her local file. Okay. So what happened? What's the problem with that model? Yeah, we don't see that. Multiple members in a project can edit the same result at the same time. So it will increase the productivities. However, when there is a conflict, so we need to resolve the conflict, and we need to merge, right, manually the two different versions of resource. So that is like it's not easy to maintain the consistency. If Andy maybe say, Bobby, what you do? So ignore the Bobby chain and only get the Andy version, for example. So it's like some risk for the merging, right? So that's why for the merging, we also have some rules for the merging. If there is a conflict, and you need to talk to the Bobby to find out the best solution for the merging, or to resolve the conflict. To resolve the conflict. So that is the case for that model. And because it's like increase the productivity, so that's why now we use this versioning model. And one more things about this, that is about the way you manage the repository. So we have centralized version control. That is, we have only one repository, and each member will have working copy and commit or update directly to the common repository. That is the centralized version control. So do you think that if somebody use the version control system like Git, for example, use the centralized version control, or not that model, that is the distributed version control. So many students say to me that they use the centralized version control, but in fact, they use the distributed version control. So in the distributed version control, you can see here, there are multiple repositories. we have only one remote repository that is a common repository for all the members. However, in each workstation of each member, they will have local repository here. And in the working copy of each member, they can commit or update to the local repository like this. And then after some commit, they may push from the local repository to the remote repository. And they can pull from the last version of remote repository to the local repository. So that is, we have distributed, that means we have multiple repository that is like a clone, that is something like the clone version of the remote repository to the local one. And the member in teams may commit to the local repository and then push to the remote repository. Okay. So why now we use that distributed version control? What is the advantages of the distributed version control over the central version control? Okay, so before going to the comparison between the local centralized version control and distributed version control, we will see the in detail for the distributed version control. So we have some term for that. When you want to have the local repository, you clone from the remote repository, from the remote one, from the server to the local for working. That is local repository. And Andy and Bobby also have the local working copy here, and she or he can concurrently edit the resource at the same time, and can commit locally. And then from the local repository, Andy can push to the remote repository. And when Bobby wants to push from the from her local repository, she cannot do because it may have conflict. So she need to pull, that is fetch with merge. So get the last version in the remote repository and merge with the her local repository. Okay, and then she can push now with no conflict. Yeah. And Andy can pull the last version from the remote repository to the local repository. Okay, so that is the more detail on distributed version control. So my question is, what is the advantages of the distributed version control compared to the centralized version control? So that's my question, and you should maybe think about it, maybe look at the internet or do something, and try to answer me at the next lecture, okay? So that is some, there's some, you know, about the versioning models and what is a version control. And now I just walk through some vocabulary of the version control system. Repository, that is the server, that is a place to store the files and keep the change log. Revision or version, okay, that is the individual version of the document. When at every time when you change, it will make a new version. Check out, clone. So check out, that we get the the last version from the remote repository to the local repository. Depends on the versioning model. It may lock the file or not, depending on the versioning model. Change the modification to local file, okay? Under version control, change set or change list. This set change of multiple files. Each time when you commit, maybe you have the change set, or change list. You need to check that before commit or push to the remote repository. Commit, or check in. So submit the change from the local working copy to the repository, and it automatically create a new version. Depends on the versioning model. Maybe we have the conflicts. In the centralized, maybe conflict when you commit, but in the distributed, conflict occur when you push from the local repository to the remote repository, right? Yeah, conflict. Conflict when you have simultaneous change to a certain file by multiple users, And the conflict can be solved automatically by the version control system if it's like only conflict about the same file, but someone add a new function and someone modify another function, so it's not related to each other, even though in the same file, but in the different places in the same file. So the tool will do it automatically. But if they change the same function, or one delete, one change, one maybe modify that function, so they need to do to solve the conflict manually. Update, get last latest version, fetch, pull. That is some very like similar terms. I mean, get the last version from the repository to local working copy, local working directory. You may undo the checkout or revert, undo the change. Merge, combine, change with the same file. Label or tag, because whenever you commit a change to the repository, it automatically create a version. So you will have many versions. But if you want to manage like a minor version, a major version, so you may put a label or tag so that with the name, so that you easily to navigate to that version. There's a major version. Branching is like that is a topic that we will maybe talking more on the next lab, saying about maybe lab 4, I don't remember exactly, but so maybe you will have some new feature or do something else you don't want to do directly on the mainstream of the source code. You may have a brand, maybe you get a new feature and you do something on that, and when everything okay, when you check everything is okay, you can merge that branch to the main branch. So with the branch, it allows you to like separate something that's not complete, and the main branch is something like the complete one or something already checked well. So whenever you get from the main one, it's always works. But for the branch, some branch, it may be incomplete or untested, something like that. So when everything is okay, you can merge to the main branch. That is the purpose of the branch. Okay, so let's go to the last section in lecture today, so that you may have some tools. So you see, central version control. and distributed version control. You see Git is distributed, right? And for me, for example, when I was a student, I used the source code or SVN. So SourceSafe or SVN, they are central version control. But now it's very common to use Git to use Git. So it's a distributed version control. Also, you can use other tool like Mercurial, but it's not as common as Git. So Git, you know, it's free, open source, and yeah, I think they have a huge community that use Git for to manage the version of the source code. So it's very easy for you to use Git to manage your source code. And there's some guidelines, so you can see at my slide to do some basic command for the Git, and also in my files, in my guideline for the Git, you may you may practice, and you can do that in the labs lesson, okay? And you may host your repository, the remote repository, in a server or maybe in the online hosting. So GitHub, that is the hosting I asked you to submit the exercise, the assignment, the labs, and the mini project. So please go there. If you don't have any account, please create one. And following my guideline to commit to submit your result. Okay. Besides GitHub, there are also other hosting sites like Google Code. As I know, Google Code maybe not support now. I think SourceForge. SourceForge is like all the projects are public and open source. And also it's a big hosting site. Yeah, but it's not as common as GitHub for sure, or Codeflake or Bitbucket. So you may choose, maybe start the repository on your own server, or maybe online hosting. But now normally company, or especially for student, my recommendation is you should use the hosting on online hosting for the version control system. It's very convenient, and it's cheap. And for students, they are free. Yeah, before GitHub, they only free for open source project, and they need to, and the user need to pay. Need to pay if they want to have private projects. But now they are free for the private project up to 5 members, as I remember. And maybe they have some special some policy. They may have some special policy for students, maybe unlimited members, if you prove that you are students, for example. Let's check in the GitHub. Okay, so that is all for my lecture about the version control. Thank you for your listening, and if you have any question, you may raise in my Facebook group of .com. Thank you so much of this course. Yeah, thank you so much, and see you in next lecture.